Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session. This is one of the most requested ones. And if you see the agenda in the description below, those are like hundreds and hundreds of questions that I have gotten. What is the importance of personal branding? How to be good at LinkedIn? How to get referrals? What is the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador program? So before we get started, first of all, thanks a lot, Sarah, for joining. Sarah is a global community program manager at Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors. This program is really amazing. If I would highly encourage you all to apply to it. I have been a part of this program since I don't know, my freshman year, and the community is really great, and the support that you get, and the mentorship and the community engagement that you get is just top notch. So Sarah, would you like to tell the students a little bit more about yourself?
Of course. Thanks, Kunal. Hello, everyone. So happy to be here, and we're gonna tackle a big topic today that I don't even think I can sum up fully in an hour's time. But we'll touch on some helpful tips. Hopefully, this is a presentation I've done before with another student in the program. It was a little different though, so there may be some repetitive information if you happen to catch that. But it's always good to have a refresher in this space, and it's an ever-changing area of how to market yourself and how to be appealing in this job world, especially in these last few years. It's highly competitive, as you all know. So yeah, I'm excited to share some of that. You can see my screen, correct?
Yeah, I would have to add that, and I believe they can see it now. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to send those in the chat, and we'll try to answer as many as we can.
Perfect. Well, as Kunal said, I'm going to touch on my background a little bit. But yeah, I'm currently a community program manager with the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors program. I focus on the India region. We do support all students in the program in our roles, but my specific focus is within India, supporting events like this and helping answer inquiries, helping navigate the different benefits and elements that you can get from the program, as well as beyond, which is why I love doing this presentation and helping students navigate, given the background that I have. So I do come from about 7 years of experience in recruitment and marketing at a fast-growing tech startup. So there was 2 different ones I worked at in the Seattle area previously. And I love telling the story that I started as a recruiting coordinator. So those first points of contact when you apply to a job and somebody reaches out to get you scheduled to speak with the recruiter or speak to the hiring manager, that's what I did. I was the first point of contact to all candidates. And I loved that. I loved being that face of the company and helping especially young professionals navigating that world of what's it like to interview, and what do I need to be prepared for, and what can I expect. And I actually did a lot of university recruiting, a ton of job fairs and career-related events. So I kind of dove in headfirst into the recruiting world about 7 years ago. And then I, from there, started to kind of expand into actually recruiting itself. And then I also started to work on employer brand. So I don't know, that's sometimes a unique term, but if you're not familiar with it, it's the branding of a company in terms of how to attract candidates. So when you go to a careers page and they talk about the benefits and what it's like to work here, or when you're looking at a company's Glassdoor page, that's all employer brand. So I started doing that. I loved, in a nutshell, selling the company to candidates, talking about why I loved working there, why did other employees love working there. So that sort of steered me in the direction towards program and project management, and then also a little bit in the direction of marketing. So I have an interesting background where I've dabbled in a couple different areas, and but always under the umbrella of program management, especially most recently. My education is a little varied as well. Degrees in Spanish, international studies, and special education. I actually love that about my current role, that I get to use my Spanish a little bit. I'm definitely using my international studies. So it just kind of goes to show you never know where your career path is going to take you. It can take many weird turns, and ultimately, hopefully for the better, which definitely has been my case. And then before I was in recruiting, I actually began in retail sales. So go figure. It's like I said, always random. And then I'm going to call out, and I'll point out this several times throughout the presentation, that networking and relationship building have been key in my career development. I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have had the experiences or the opportunities I had without creating those important relationships. So more on that, but I do kind of call that out in my background in general. And so then we'll touch on personal branding. I know I mentioned that, with my background in recruiting and a little bit of it, they do parallel. There is some definite overlaps in the content in this presentation and what we want to talk about with personal branding. So within that context, what the heck is personal branding? So we're talking about how to market yourself in today's professional world. And this goes beyond just a resume. This is not just what you put forward in a job application. It is the entirety of who you are in terms of what you want to put forward to the world. So likely a lot of that is digital, but it does go beyond that as well. So we've got many platforms. I mean, you have so many ways in which you can brand and personalize who you are. And so I would really just encourage you to take a step back, really reflect on what matters to you and what values do you have and how do you want others to see you? And that's going to help build your own personal brand and who you are. And then from there, really pull together what are all the different ways that you are showcasing yourself to the world. You've got all these different social platforms. You have all these different medias and portfolios and ways in which you can highlight the work and contributions you're making. So once you've figured out the messaging you want to have, make sure that it's consistent across the different platforms. That's really when someone, so like when we're looking at applications for the program, when I come across a student who, has a really consistent brand, their messaging, maybe their design, all of that is consistent across all these different medias, that stands out. That to me, I'm like, oh wow, this person really took time to think about that, to be solid in what they wanted to relay. And it just looks more pulled together. And I guarantee that's being looked at as well in the recruiting world. And that can be, like I mentioned, you can have, style or designs. Maybe you have a particular quote that resonates with you and you use that across the different platforms. But, Kunal, this would be a good place for you to jump in and kind of talk about, you've built an incredible brand for yourself. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you came to that.
Sure. So first of all, thanks a lot for the question. And I believe I attended a talk like this as well. So in that they mentioned if you're doing good work, then you should definitely, share about it. And I come from for example, in my college, we don't get many on-campus opportunities. So in order to apply for off-campus, I try to network with other people. And it's really important to, if you have some skills, so it's really important to actually showcase those skills to the outside world. Because if you're out at an event and you're looking forward to talking to someone, and let's say you're looking forward to get an internship and you're networking with other people, so you need something, right, in order to communicate with them. Because that is the one more problem we have. Most people just send when networking with people, they just send connections requests, and they don't really network with people. They don't engage in conversations. So networking is much more than sending a LinkedIn request. And in terms of personal branding, it has helped me quite a lot. Yeah, most definitely. I have gotten a lot of opportunities, and my summer internship that I have gotten recently, I did not apply for that. I got reached out. So that was pretty great. And that was because of my social profile. They were like, we were really impressed by your GitHub. And I was like, oh, cool. Then we did. That's how it went. So yeah, I mean, my personal brand has helped me quite a lot. And it's also a great way to, help others. So if you're good at something and you're sharing resources or contributing to the community, be that workshops or open source or writing a blog, for example, or creating content like we do on YouTube, all of these things count as also helping towards the community. So,
Oh, so true. Yeah, there's so many. It's such a complex web when you think about networking, but in the sense that you never know when and where it's gonna come into place for you. So I do actually. I have a slide all about networking, and you hit on some really valuable points about just kind of being prepared and being having that presence and that branding in place. Because someone may reach out to you and offer you an amazing opportunity, and you wouldn't have had that had you not laid the groundwork ahead of time. So that's awesome. Congratulations, Kunal.
thank you.
Okay, so on that note, then let's talk a little bit about online presence. So speaking of LinkedIn, I do like to call out that your LinkedIn profile is really an extension of your resume. It should be very, very similar, but I believe that it shouldn't be completely identical. So maybe think of it like a cousin instead of a sibling, where you're relaying the same information, but maybe you're calling out some different points, or maybe you're explaining it in a different way. For example, a resume oftentimes is a little more formal, and you have these bulleted items, and they're talking about specific metrics that you hit, and really showcasing the work you've done. But LinkedIn is a little more conversational. Maybe you write a couple paragraphs about the work you're doing and why that's important to you. So, but in general, they would parallel, and you're highlighting very similar information. And then with LinkedIn, take advantage of everything they're offering. Complete your profile. That means including a current photo of you, adding all the certificates and awards, everything you've been working hard for. Show it off. That's the point of this profile. And like Kunal said, the more you build it out, you're going to be more appealing. You're going to show up on those Boolean searches that recruiters are doing. As people are networking and they see that you have experience in that space and they want to gain experience there, that's all how it works. So super important to build out your profile. I'm sure many of you have done this, but turn on those seeking opportunities so that recruiters can see that you're looking for work. And I mean, I like to leave that on, even if I do really enjoy the work that I'm doing, because why close those doors? You never know who's going to reach out, and you can always say, "Oh, I'm really happy right now. I'm not looking for something." Because I think there is even a level that's like open to something versus actively seeking. And then do a social media scrub. So as we're talking about your brand and how you are portraying yourself to the world, make sure that is in line with what you want to relay to prospective employers. So I think you should Google yourself, see what comes up. Maybe have a friend do it so that you're not skewing the search results in any way. But see what double check those privacies. If something's getting through and you're like, oh gosh, I did not mean to have that picture or that content showing up on a public level. And then in a nutshell, ensure that it presents you in a professional light. And then moving on to job applications themselves, I won't spend too much time on this slide, but there are a plethora of resources out there for finding out about a company, for job searches in general. It can be a little overwhelming. I like to highlight just a few. So whenever I'm looking for work or whenever I'm trying to figure out where to apply, LinkedIn is fantastic. There are millions and millions of jobs posted, and they actually do a really good job of breaking out because it has your experience right there in the profile. So they can start to suggest jobs based on your experience and based on your preferences. Glassdoor, if you create an account with them, it's free. You get all kinds of inside information. And granted, you are getting the information that the company wants you to see on their page, but then if you go to the reviews, those are unsolicited. Those are things that the employees of the company are writing about their experience. So you're really getting, that's the great part about the name. You're getting a Glassdoor view, through that window into what it's like to work there. Indeed, very similar to LinkedIn, just massive amounts of jobs that you can tailor down. And then once you've found a job that works and maybe you don't know about the company or you want to learn more, go to their actual career page. So when you go to the website of the company, usually down at the very bottom, it says about us or, jobs available or careers. And that's the employer brand section that I was talking about earlier. So that will show you, oftentimes they have pictures of the office or pictures of employees in the office and what benefits are available, what the executive team looks like, what their mission and values are. All of that can help you figure out whether that company aligns with your personal values and your personal brand, which is, I think, an important part about finding a good fit. And then just a few notes about resume and cover letter. I kind of touched on this a little bit, but I really like when candidates add in those key metrics. So, instead of just writing a sentence about what you've done, try to find that impact. Did you increase users by X percent? Did you, increase the functionality of something? Did you grow something by a percent? Anywhere where you can add in those metrics and just give a little bit more weight to it looks really good. And what we've been talking about quite a bit, networking. So really, Kunal said it, I've said it several times, utilize your network whenever possible and maybe get creative. Think about, that's one of the wonderful things about LinkedIn is if you see a job on LinkedIn, it'll tell you who you know that works there. So you could reach out to that person and, hey, I came across this job. Hope you're doing well. I came across this job at the company you're working for. How are you liking it? It can always be very casual. You're not going to write them a message and say, "Can you get me a job there?" Or how can you please hire me? You want to keep it a little more casual, but everyone understands the game. Everyone understands why you're reaching out. You don't need to explicitly say. So try to find a polite way to dig into that information and make that connection, because likely it's somebody you haven't spoken to in a while. Maybe you worked with them at a previous company or you went to school with them. So some good ways around that. This is obviously outside of COVID times, but offer to buy them coffee if they live in your area. Everyone loves coffee or tea or a pastry. Offer them something for their time. And you can also frame it as informational interviews. Gosh, I learned about this project that you're working on, or I'd love to learn more about the work that you're doing. Once you get face to face and get into those discussions, you never know where that's going to go. But those are just some ideas to kind of get a foot in the door. And on that note, target appropriately. Think about who you're reaching out to. If it's someone who you haven't spoken to in a really, really long time and you are only connections on LinkedIn, and maybe they're like an executive level and you're looking at an entry level job, that may not be the best situation. I'm just throwing out ideas here, but just try to think thoughtfully about who you're reaching out. Be respectful always, but be specific with your ask. What once you do have that door open and they seem open to helping you, then let them know. I am looking for a job. I saw this role open. I'm curious to learn more. And I did have a story I wanted to share kind of about what networking can do for you, and talking about thinking of it in terms of a long game. So as I mentioned before, you never know when these are going to pan out for you. So when I started in my recruiting coordinator role, a while back, there was somebody who was working in my department, and I was immediately taken with her. I thought she was very bubbly and infectious and outgoing, and I was like, wow, what a cool person. In general, I really wanted to learn more from her, and she was working on employer brand. And at the time, I had no idea what that was. I just came from the retail world. I was brand new to recruiting. So I asked her, what's employer brand? This sounds interesting. It seems like you do fun stuff all day long. What is your role? And she started taking me to career events. She started showing me the work she was doing. And we sort of formed a mentor-mentee relationship. She wasn't my manager. She just worked in my department. And then she only a couple months after I joined that company, she moved on to a different job. And I was initially really sad. I was like, shoot, I really liked learning from her. Gosh, I'm going to have to stay in touch. And then about a year, almost 2 years later, her and I had been in contact, and she actually had a position open on her team to do something very similar to what I was doing, with much more growth potential than the current role that I was in. And so that's how I moved on to work at Real Self and have the incredible career growth that I have. And I actually was able to work underneath her, and she was my manager for a while. And it's just, that was what turned me on to program management and the world that I'm in now. So you never know, those questions, those connections that you make, how they're going to pan out. Kunal, do you have anything more to add in this space? I know networking is huge for you.
I like to network with people. So I network with people because I love to. I love meeting new people. I love listening to their stories and everything. So it's not just about, will this person be able to help me in the future? I am not really thinking about that. If I see someone who's doing good work, I reach out to them and I just, have a call with them, because I know Calendly has been pretty popular recently during COVID. So I have met a lot of people, had a one-on-one with them from the community and from like open source and stuff. That has also helped me in terms of like getting opportunities. I'm not going to deny that. But when you're networking people, the way I look at it is, I'm like really interested in the work that people are doing, because you learn from your seniors, right? You learn from the people who are actually, doing good work in their particular organizations. So yeah, I totally agree with this particular point. Like, utilize your network whenever possible. And I've done that. I like reached out for a referral for my when I was applying to Google, and I got 2 referrals, and then my resume also shortlisted and everything. So that helped me, right? So referrals helped me in clearing the rounds and stuff. So I got my referral via I reached out to this particular person, and I was like, I really like the work that you're doing. Can you just come onto the on the stream with me and share with students like some tips regarding interview preparation and things like that. So even though I first reached out to them, it wasn't for like a job opportunity or anything, but I utilized those resources for after a few months, like, hey, I was looking forward to applying to this company. Would you able to refer me, because you are aware of the work that I'm doing? So yeah, that's definitely, I can agree and relate with that.
That's such a good point. Referrals hold a lot of weight. If you can have a true referral where the person can vouch for the work that you're doing and vouch for you as an individual joining that company, that's really big. So yeah, again, you never know. You want to start kind of tread lightly in these relationships, and then like give them time to grow and blossom, and then I guarantee some of them will really come back in dividends for you throughout your career. And on that note, you hit on it a little bit, Kunal, but some interview tips. In general, you want to try to be as on point and present yourself in the best light possible from the very first email. Having been that first point of contact as a recruiting coordinator, I can tell you the recruiters looked to me often of, how's this person interacting with you? How have they been? Are they polite to you? Are they flexible? Did they offer a lot of good availability? What was their response time like? All of that was considered when we were looking at them for candidacy. I'm not going to say that I made or break anybody's decision, but the information that I was providing and the impressions that I was getting did hold weight. So just try to be as professional and kind and flexible as upfront from the very beginning. And then appropriate attire. So again, this is if you're going to be going for an in-person interview. Obviously, remote interviews are a little different because you really from here up is really what you have to focus on. But it's really good to ask about appropriate attire if you're unsure. Some companies really are sticklers about it. It's not so much anymore. I know that's kind of transitioning. But I'm talking about the difference between flip-flops, board shorts, and a tank top versus a full suit and tie. I mean, I've seen it all. I've seen like the whole spectrum of crazy attire stories. So I never got mad at a candidate for asking, gosh, what should I wear? What's the dress code? We would rather have you ask than show up in something that is either uncomfortable for you or for us. So, and then you don't need to print a resume. Everything's digital now, and likely the interviewer is going to have their laptop up. So that may be a little antiquated at this point as well, but just throwing that in there. And then having questions, again, that's how you learn. That's how they learn, how interested you are, the research you did. I like to have a whole list of questions, and then you can kind of tailor them back. Maybe the interviewer answers one of your questions that you had during the interview, so you can cross that one out. But at least you have a good backlog of questions. And to offer a few sample ones, these obviously are not role specific. These are just some general ones that I like to throw in. It's, what do you view as the most challenging aspect of this role? What does success look like in this role? And then if I'm a little unsure, this is if I'm interviewing, I'm the interviewee. Are there any doubts about my candidacy? Is there anything that I can clear up for you? Is there any further questions you have? I think that's always fine to ask, and that kind of prompts the interviewer if they did. Gosh, I did have a question about this one project and your involvement in it. Can you go back to that? You just want to open that door. And then just to wrap it up, how you come off in these interviews and when you're applying to jobs, that's an extension of your personal brand. It kind of all ties together. So you're going to lay the groundwork with how your brand is digitally and how you want to relay yourself on your different platforms. And then you're going to extend that into the application and the networking and all the work you're putting into marketing yourself as you enter and continue to pursue opportunities in the job world. And that was all I had. So I've got definite time for questions. It looks like we have
quite a
good
few,
amount.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for the presentation, Sarah. That was pretty good. And let's now take a few more questions. Let's see. I lost track of the questions, but anyway, thanks a lot for the shout out, everyone. Cool. Okay, so there's this question: how do we know what to include in our resume, and what if the resume exceeds the one-page standard?
Good question. Yeah, I made a quick note of that I kind of err on the side of 1 to 2 pages. I don't think it's a huge deal. I mean, once you're getting past 2 full pages and onto a 3rd page, likely there's some formatting or maybe some details we could cut back on, especially for those of you who are earlier in your career. You can sum up the volunteer experience or the different items in a shorter format, and then leave room for the meatier stuff, the various careers or internships that you've had, or jobs that would give it more length. So in terms of length, that answers that question. Content-wise, usually I think the rule of thumb is really give good detail to maybe the last 3 or so roles or experiences that you've had. And then anything beyond that or beyond like 7 to 10 years back, that again can maybe just be listed, or maybe you just touch on it with 1 sentence. You don't need to give the full job description and everything you did. That's an opportunity that you could do in your LinkedIn profile. Or that's an opportunity in the interview itself. I wanted to call out that even though this was a while back, I had a lot of experience in X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, most definitely. And my resume initially was very cluttered, and I asked for some review, and that person was like, "There's too much text on this, so you should probably remove a few things." But yeah, for example, if you're listing your projects, right? So over there also you should not mention like 5 projects that are similar, right?
Exactly.
So mention diversity in your projects. If you know more than one tech stack, then make sure you all it does not really make sense to have 5 projects that are using React because like interviewer will be like, yeah, I get it, you know React. But
Yep.
anyway,
Yep. Yep.
there's one more question. So we're talking about networking with people, right? So is it necessary to have a strong profile in order for us to network with people?
I'm guessing we're talking about a LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
It is not necessary. I think it will help. And like I said before, I would do what you can to build it out as much as you can, because again, when you're reaching out, that's what you're portraying to them. They're going to look at your profile like, who's this? How do I know this person? What's their experience? So however you can kind of fill in those gaps for them and make the obvious connection of why you're reaching out, that's just gonna benefit the relationship. So the answer is no. It doesn't have to be like complete, but just get it as far along as possible. I mean, everybody understands, especially for students or those who are just entering the job world. You're not going to make stuff up. You have the experience that you have, and that's the whole point of this. So maybe coming more from an angle of I'm interested in learning about this, or I'm curious about this career path. Can you tell me what your experience was like getting there, your background? I think that's always a good route to take.
That's true, and like that's a very good point regarding if you don't have anything to put on your profile, like you're just starting out with college, so you can at least put your college name, for example, and things you're interested in learning about, things you're currently learning. So all those
Volunteer
things can be
experience.
volunteer experience. Yeah. There's one more good question, which is how do you deal with thoughts like I am boasting, etc. if you're trying to talk about your achievements?
Great question. And I think it's something that almost everybody struggles with. There are some individuals in the world who have no trouble at all with with this area, but yeah, I mean, I've had the same feeling going into an interview or talking to someone like, gosh, I sound really braggy. I don't like this. This is not in line with my brand. This is not who I am. There's a balance. You'll figure it out, and especially as you grow in your experience, there will be a certain level of confidence. Like you're saying, like I really know React. I know this through and through. I've done X number of projects on it. That's not bragging. That's a fact. You're really good at that. So finding the things that you know through and through and that you feel confident in, and then when you relay it, it's not going to feel like you're necessarily bragging. But I would also like to add that it's okay to, even though it feels a little uncomfortable, you should be boasting. An interview is your opportunity to do that. And your various platforms, especially LinkedIn and your resume, that's your opportunity to call these things out. I mean, we only get so many chances at these various opportunities, and go for it. I think you'll find a good balance that feels comfortable for you.
Yeah. And I don't believe it's wrong to do it. If you're good at something and you're showcasing it, then it's fine. Yeah, that's totally okay. I know how some other people might feel like if someone else is saying to you like, why are you sharing about all these things, and why are you like doing this and doing that? So I believe that is not good. If you're helping someone, like if you're saying that, hey, I'm good at web dev, feel free to reach out, or this is the workshop that we are conducting, feel free to join. So things like that do not count as boasting, and it's totally okay. Like if in an interview you're not able to present your skills and you feel like that is boasting, that's not boasting. They're like really because you're applying to an interview, right? So in that, it's very, very important to showcase what you have to offer. But thanks a lot for sharing, Sarah. Let's see if there are any other questions. Yeah, so there's one question. How do we make our goals and values stand out among the masses, as many share same goals in commons? These questions are very good, by the way. Thanks a lot for sharing.
That is a really good one, like you said, and challenging to tackle, because the more competitive the market gets, like you're saying, the more saturated it is, and the more, and especially with the digital world, I mean, everyone can see everybody else's ideas, and everyone can pick up on other ideas. So then, like, what is uniqueness? It's really challenging to come across that way. I think the best way to come up with your values and your goals is to be as true as possible to who you are and what you believe, because you are uniquely you, and that's going to come through. Well, there may be some alignment and consistency with other people. Likely there will be. I mean, you are getting all kinds of influences from the external world that are very similar to others. So that's what makes us human. We are, as people on this planet, we are connected in more ways than we know. So that's okay to have them be shared and aligned, but just find a way to have it resonate with you instead of relaying what somebody else has just because they said it and you thought it sounded good. Find a way to have it be true to who you are.
Yeah, and like everyone has their own passion, but there are many people who are actually acting upon it as well. So if you're saying, I'm really into mobile development or I'm really into machine learning, that is great. But still, if there's someone else who is like, I'm really good at machine learning, in addition to that, they have a lot of nice projects. They have a lot of nice, let's say, practical work in that particular domain. That's going to stand out. So even though it's good to be passionate about things, but make sure you have things to, have a conversation about as well. Like if someone asks you, okay, you're into machine learning, can you tell me a bit more about your experience? If you don't have any projects or anything like that, it's not going to look good on your side.
Yeah. And to that point, be open and honest. If you're really into something, but you don't have the experience to back it, say that. I think I'm really into this space, but I don't have a lot of experience there. I'd love to learn more. That's a really good way to get a foot in the door for a conversation with someone who's more advanced in their career in that area.
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks a lot for sharing, Sarah. There's one more question. It says, what type of messages should you send as a note when connecting on LinkedIn?
Yeah, really good question. I think as I mentioned earlier, you want to always be respectful, obviously, and understand that you're taking somebody's time out of their very busy day. Everybody's really busy. We all have crazy schedules. So be as thoughtful, but also to the point. So highlight for them why you're reaching out, why you thought it was a good connection to reach out. I see you work at this company. I saw this job opening. I'm curious to learn more about the work that you're doing in that space. That would be an example of a very pointed question on LinkedIn. I've gotten a lot of messages from people that, I'm looking for a job in this space. I saw that you work at this company. Can you tell me more about it? And those, I will generally reply to those if the ask, like I said, is somewhat specific, and to me, there's I look at their profile and I'm like, okay, yeah, the background matches what they're talking about. If I really have to hunt and I'm like, wait, I don't understand why. I don't know how this person found out about me, and I don't know how. I don't know where the connection is. Then I might not be as inclined to respond. But so I think keeping it polite and concise and specific as possible is very helpful.
Most definitely, because also there's a word limit on the when you're sending a connection request,
which is good.
You have to be concise. Yeah. There's one more question over here, which was regarding so when we're applying to a job or an internship, is it necessary to have in-depth knowledge in all the tech stack that you have mentioned?
I would say no. I only had a small amount of experience with technical recruiting. A lot of that was the university technical recruiting, but I wouldn't say in depth per se. I don't think it needs to be extensive in terms of what you know or your experience, but being able to show the passion for that space and being able to show that you at least have a really solid grasp on the tech stack is valuable. But I wouldn't use the term in depth. I mean, especially for those of you who are starting out in your career, that's not necessarily expected. I mean, these are going to be a lot of entry level jobs that are, you're starting out into the space, and that's where you gain that experience. So no, I wouldn't say in depth.
That is true. I totally agree with that. And there's one more question. I have personally never been asked this question, but still, I know a few people have been. So how do you answer questions like, what are your weaknesses? And the question is like, also, I want to ask this. Do people really ask that?
Yeah, I have been in interviews before that are either, what do you view is your weakness and why, or what do you do to compensate for that? I've also seen, tell me about a time that you failed. Tell me about a time that a project didn't go as planned. Those behavioral questions are really just trying to get to how do you A, think about yourself, and B, how do you handle difficult situations? How do you pivot when something doesn't go right? How do you pivot and fix it? Because a lot of, I think almost every company nowadays is moving so fast, and there's so many things coming out and new products being launched and changes happening that you have to think on your toes. And when something doesn't work, then you need to recover and move forward and fix it. And so they're looking for that type of information. And so a weakness, I really like to find ways. This is sort of bad, and it doesn't really help with the behavioral interviews. But I like to find a weakness that can sort of be spun to be a benefit. So sometimes I've answered this as, sometimes I feel a weakness of mine is that I tend to take on too many things. I have I want to say yes to a lot of different projects, and I get really excited about all the different work that I can do. And sometimes I overcommit myself, and I've got too many, and then I have to kind of delegate, or I have to load balance a little bit. So while I did answer the question, I mentioned that I'm a really hard worker and I like to take on a lot of projects, and I'm an overachiever. So sometimes you can skirt around it that way.
Weaknesses are that there are no weaknesses, right?
Exactly.
So, alrighty. There's one more very, very good question, which is, what about introverts? People who are introverts and they don't know how to interact with people. Any tips for those? So, similar question, like person who is not so expressive.
Yep. All great questions, and that's one of the nice things about being a little more digital nowadays is it allows you time to kind of think more thoughtfully about the ways in which you want to reach out. There's so many different online events that you can participate in that allow you to leave comments, or you can attend somebody's webinar and then send them a message on LinkedIn, like, hey, I attended your webinar last week. I really liked it. I found it very helpful for X, Y, and Z. There are a lot of ways to help those who are less comfortable in, especially one-on-one or in-person interactions. And I've seen a lot of, especially in hiring individuals at companies, they especially when you do an interview loop, they work to put individuals on the loop who are diverse, and not just diverse in backgrounds or skin color, but diverse in the ways in which they approach the workforce. So you've got maybe someone who's a little more outgoing and maybe someone who's a little more introverted. And I've seen it really work well when you've got an introverted candidate and then they connect with that person and it's like, yeah, I agree. I do not love all of this. This is a little overwhelming for me, but this is how I've handled it. So I think have faith that especially when you're interviewing at a company, you hopefully won't get thrown into a situation where there's a bunch of very bubbly extroverted people in your face. And it's also okay to voice that. It's okay to say that, this is what I feel more comfortable with, or this is the setting where I thrive. That's part of who you are. That'll be part of your personal branding and how you want to navigate situations. So I think advocate for yourself. Find the situations and the settings that work best for you and play it to your favor.
Thanks a lot for sharing, Sarah. And I totally agree with that. I was an introvert before, but now I'm just
Really?
yeah. I was very I would say the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors was the first community I was a part of, and over
Wow.
there the first steps, right? So with the interaction with the people and everything. So I would definitely, that's a good point. Join a community if you're an introvert, and that's
It's a really good point.
There's another question. I know many people can relate to it. Sometimes they're saying sometimes I feel low to see other people's achievements on LinkedIn. How do we cope up with that situation?
Yeah, no, that's me too. Like I get it. There's so much, and there are some people that have no problem boasting and bragging about their achievements. So, I think there are things you can do, obviously, to tailor your feed, and I've done it too. If there's somebody who is, at the end of the day, I take a step back and I'm like, gosh, I was just on that social media platform and I do not feel good. I do not like how I feel after having scrolled for a little while, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can unfollow people. You can remove them. They're not going to know. And it's about you. You have to watch out for yourself, and that's part of your self-care of how you feel at the end of the day. So that's totally fine. And then also just remember that that's their moment and that's their thing that they have likely worked really hard on. In that in the summit presentation, or the summit session that we had recently, the final speaker for the event, he said something that really resonated with me about in life and in your career, there's a lot of time where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden something happens, and that it can seem so much like, especially when you're looking at somebody else's situation, you're like, what? How did they get that job? Like, it seems like they're always getting new jobs. You don't know that. There's probably a lot of work on the back end that they've been putting in, and a lot of networking, a lot of connections they've been making. You never know somebody's story and what they've been dealing with. And then also for yourself, all the groundwork and all the things that you're laying are building up towards your thing, your next big thing. So hold that faith. It's going to happen. And maybe try to be happy. Like, oh, good for them. Cool. I know mine will come soon, but we all deal with that. It's not easy. It's a problem with social media.
Yeah. I'm not going to say don't compare yourself with others, because people do it anyway. It's like inevitable, but try to get some motivation from it as well. So even though you're like looking at someone's achievements, so not just like comparing yourself with them, but also getting motivated, reaching out to them like, hey, how do you get this internship? How do you get this role? That's how I have also, reached out to a lot of people, and they have helped me. So yeah, when I was seeing Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador posts, so I reached out to current. It was called the Microsoft Student Partner Programs before.
Yeah.
So I reached out to them and they shared with me, and then I applied, then I got selected. So you learn from those people. It's a good opportunity for you. There's one more question over here. How do we, so this is like, I believe the last question, every other question has been answered. How do we ask for referrals on LinkedIn without being awkward?
Yeah, I think really good question. I think it'll be a bit of a dance as you kind of figure out, I think a good way to reach out initially is sort of not asking that question outright. So for example, say I see a job on LinkedIn. And I'm like, gosh, that looks like a really good job for me. That's got I hit a lot of those bullet points, and I'm thinking about applying. And then you see on LinkedIn, oh, wow, I know somebody that I worked with recently who just joined there 6 months ago. So you would send them a note and, hey, I saw that you switched jobs. Congratulations. How are you liking it? I've heard a lot of things about that company, and I'm curious to learn more. I'm actually potentially considering a job change as well. Then you've started the conversation. You're not asking for something tangible immediately. You're asking just for some, how are you doing, and congratulating them. And then, hey, they'll respond, thanks so much. Great to hear from you. I'm loving it. This company culture is amazing. My role is perfect. My manager is awesome. How are you doing? Tell me more about what you're looking for. What kind of a role are you interested in? We have a lot of new jobs open. And then you say, yeah, actually, I saw this job, and I'm curious, does the company have a referral program? That's a really good way to ask, because oftentimes they're going to want to refer you, because if a company has a referral bonus program, they'll get paid if you get hired. So you're not bugging them. You might actually be making them money. So think of it that way, but just go along the lines of trying to be respectful and honor their time. But that's an example of a good way to play that out.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you're first reaching out to them, like you're just talking to them, don't just directly jump onto that point. Like that is why I mentioned, like, it's always good to network with people, irrespective of whether you want to, ask them for a referral or not. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Alrighty. So I believe we answered all the questions. Thanks a lot for that, Sarah. And can we maybe also talk a bit more about, like, there are a few questions regarding. Oh, by the way, there was one thing, and thanks a lot for all the shout outs people are giving in the chat. So yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah. There was one thing, 1 second, where is it? Can we follow you on Twitter, Sarah?
You can, but I am horrible on Twitter. I do not have very much.
You can reach out to Sarah on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn's probably better.
Yeah, there are a few questions regarding, like, what the Microsoft, if you could tell a bit more about the Microsoft Learn Student Ambassadors program, and to sum up the question, what general tips would you have for the future applicants?
Yes, definitely. So the program is a rich community. As Kunal mentioned, it was one of the first communities that he really felt like himself and could grow in, and that's what makes a great community. You come as you are, but you really feel supported, and you make sometimes lifelong friendships with like-minded people, or you just gain a bunch of knowledge and utilize resources. There's many ways that the program can work for you. But the team behind it is incredibly passionate about supporting students and coming up with innovative ideas every day on how to grow this program so that we can reach more and more individuals at universities. So I did see one question about when are the results coming out. So we just finished the next round of applications. Our team is meeting this week to finalize those. And I believe sometime next week, the announcements will be going out for who was accepted in the next round. And we do applications quarterly. So we are looking through thousands and thousands of incredible students every quarter, and then adding usually a good number of those applicants each quarter. So we have lofty goals to continue to grow the program and continue to get incredible resources to do so. And yeah, I think a big message behind the Student Ambassador program is helping individuals share knowledge and skill each other up in the technology world. Kind of within that, there's all these different layers of ways in which you can do that. But at the very basic level, it's about which is very in line with Microsoft, about learning as much as you can, always evolving in that space and gaining knowledge, and then giving that back. And there is a really large aspect of the program that's focusing on how do you use tech for good, and what are the ways in which you give back to this community of student ambassadors, to your local community. That's something that really resonated with me and my values. I'm very passionate about giving back. A large part of my work outside of recruiting an employer brand was corporate social responsibility. If I could have my dream job, it would be to spend a really successful company's money for good. How can we just give back? So that was a big reason why I was gravitated towards this role. So that's a very inspiring aspect of the program.
And also, while you're applying, please make sure you put efforts in your essay. Yeah, that's also very important. Just showcase like why you want to be a part, and what all good things you're going to do and all these things. But I believe we answered all the questions. So kudos to us. Thanks a lot for joining, Sarah. And it was just a really great session. I know it's pretty late for most people who are watching from India right now. So this is going to be recorded as well, in case your friends were not able to watch it. So in the same URL, you can watch it later on. But thanks a lot for joining, Sarah. And thanks a lot for sharing all the amazing insights also regarding like interview preparation and everything. Would you like, once again, thanks a lot for the shout outs. Would you like to, give any closing remarks?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kunal. This was really fun. And I didn't touch on that. You did ask a question about the what can students do to strengthen their applications to the program. And I think you said it really well of really trying to go as in depth. We love reading those applications that are lengthier versus the shorter ones. Really tell me who you are and what drives you. Tell me about your personal brand. What are your values, and why this program? There are quite a few student ambassador programs to choose from across the different tech companies. So why this one? What is this? Why is this important to you, and how are you going to utilize it to better your community? That's something that we're really looking for. And then, of course, having strong profiles and strong personal branding across your platforms also adds weight. So continue the great work you're doing. I know being a student is not easy, so keep it up and reach out. I'm on LinkedIn. I'll do my best to get to the requests. I have quite a few pending, so I'm sorry to those I haven't accepted yet. I'll schedule some time to do that.
Yeah, including me. I sent you one today as well.
Oh, good.
That's okay. Thanks a lot for joining, Sarah, and thanks a lot for joining everyone. And you can also share about this session on socials, but not just share about it, but actually you can maybe point out which points you like the most, what you learned, and just share. You can also share the good work you're doing. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining again, and we'll see you all in the next one. Have a good night, and for people who are watching from other countries, good day, and yeah, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.